the biggest penis and testicles on the side of on the side of this guy's motorcycle.
Oh my God.
It drops the pen and then just walks up, and I saw the whole thing. I was like,
Hey, what's going on, Frankie? How are you?
doing good. Sorry, man. It made me register.
Oh no, it's all good. Yeah, it's basically that's the way of consenting to the recording, essentially.
Right. All good. All good.
Cool. I appreciate you doing this. I'm super excited.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
For sure. So, my name is Adam, and this podcast is about you and your journey in music, and we'll talk about your new record coming out.
Very cool. Thanks, Adam. Appreciate you having me.
Of course. So, tell me first where you were born and raised.
Born and raised in Las Vegas, Nevada.
Okay.
Yeah. Been here pretty much all my life. Left, I'm 46. I left when I was 18 to pursue music. I've lived everywhere, a lot of different places, pretty much every music city you can imagine, chasing this thing. And, but I always come back. I always come back to Vegas.
Okay. Did I see that you lived in Miami for a minute?
I did.
Okay.
I actually, I believe that was like the mid 90s. I wanted to, I'm Cuban. Both of my parents are Cuban. I'm first generation American.
Okay.
And I figured that was the closest I could get to Cuba without actually going to Cuba. So I wanted to learn Cuban percussion, and so I moved there specifically for that. And I did. I linked up with this percussionist, Cuban percussionist named Lázaro Valdez, and he gave me lessons for a good year. And that's something I've taken with me through the rest of my career.
That's amazing. Did you start off on drums? Is it the first instrument you learned?
I did. So I was gravitated towards rhythm and drums, and those were some of the first instruments I got were like Cuban percussion instruments. And I think even in grade school, like I got a drum set. And it's funny when people actually ask me, what do you recommend for my kid who wants to get into music? I literally, I don't even think about it. Get him a drum set. I know it's
really
tough. Get him a drum set, because to me, I think I play everything like a drummer. It's all about rhythm.
Okay.
Right. And even like, I don't know, a lot of people do the piano first, but in my opinion, it's, you have this, this makes this so much easier.
I love to hear that, because my son is 6 and we bought him a drum set during like COVID. He was 4. He must have been 4 when it started. And he just has all this energy. And I'm like, how are we going to get all this energy out? And a friend of my wife and I he's a great professional drummer. And we're like, hey, like, what would be like a kit? Like, should we get him a little kid kit? And he's like, no, just get him an electric kit with like the real kick drum. So he sent me one, and we got it for him, and he was just messing around on it for a while. I'm from San Diego. We eventually moved to Nashville like a year ago. And we got him a drum teacher here, and he loves it. So now he's just doing that. He's kind of has we have a keyboard in our house that nobody can really play well, but he'll go over there and tinker on it. But like hearing that, because I'm always like, should I put him in piano first? But hearing you say that, like, that makes me feel so much better.
Some people might have difference of opinion, but I just think about the way that what it's done for me. Like literally everything I think is rhythmic.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And it's just been very helpful to me, and so I think that's a good move in my opinion.
Okay, I'm funny.
I know a lot of piano players that can't play in time, and
interesting. Okay, they need the like click track or something, like a metronome.
It's just like there's just no feel. Drums give you feel,
Sure.
I mean? And one of the baddest musicians we know, like that the world knows, are drummers as well. People like Steven Tyler and Paul McCartney, like those guys are drummers,
Right.
It comes from somewhere, so yeah.
That's interesting. I was thinking, because I could play guitar and played in like little garage bands with friends of mine, but it was always, we could never find a drummer. So my thought process was, if he can play drums, then he's going to have like the pick of the litter here in town with anyone he wants to play with.
Yeah. Drummers are the hot seat in my band. Like it's I go through them a lot. There's a few guys that I hang on to, because it's just such an important part of the band. If
Mhm.
you don't got good time, you don't got good feel, you can pack it up and go home.
Sure. I mean, being a drummer, that must, like, when you record your records, do you play everything on the album? Especially, I would think drums, because you are a drummer at heart.
Yeah, yeah. So on the new album, on Cross the Great Divide, I played probably 90% of the drums on everything. And
Wow.
then when I didn't, I reached out to like my heroes and
Sure.
what I love. So I had like, Matt Chamberlain played on a couple tracks. I had Ash Stone played on the single, and it's like it's just another level. It's another level.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're gonna reach out to the legends that you would like, looked up to, essentially, to have on
Yeah.
your records.
I'd have like a track, like for example, a song like The Great Divide on
Hmm.
the album. Yeah, I could have done like a waltz thing, but I knew in my mind instantly, I knew that Chamberlain was the right guy for that, right? And so I hit him up,
Sure.
sent him, and literally when he sent it back, there wasn't even any notes. I wasn't like, oh, maybe go back and try. He just nailed it. You know what I mean? Like maybe in the
Yeah.
second try, it was like, no, he just nailed it exactly the way I knew he would.
That's amazing. That's amazing. I want to get to the record because I think it's got a fascinating story. You did like a documentary right alongside it.
Yeah.
But real quick, just to kind of catch up on how you got to, I know, basically where you are now, in a fast forward type motion. Like, so you were first a drummer, and then did you carry that, like, were you in drum line or anything like that through high school? And then did you play in bands throughout that time?
I did. So not in bands. As soon as I realized, that I could sing, like that took precedent.
Oh,
But
okay.
I did play in drumline in the sixth grade, and I played in band in like junior high.
Okay.
But then high school, I was like, it was all about chicks. So I was
Sure.
like,
Okay. So, yeah. When did you realize you can sing? That's a great point, because you've fronted so many bands or sang on so many records, and it's like, but I was just sticking with the drumming for some odd reason.
yeah,
But
yeah, no,
yeah, no, but like, when
no,
did you realize, like, hey, like, I'm actually an incredible singer too?
well, I don't think I still haven't realized it. I still don't think I'm an incredible singer, but I did realize that I loved entertaining people, and it was a lot easier to do from behind a microphone than it was from behind the kit.
Okay.
And and funny enough, my sister's the one that my older sister was the one that said to me one day that I was actually in my room. We shared a wall, and I was singing to it was like an 80s R&B song. It was a song by a band called After Seven, right?
Okay.
And it was on the radio all the time. And I remember, and I was in my room singing, I give you the sun, the rain, the moon, the stars, and the mountains. And I was just singing it over and over again. And she knocks on my door. Usually when she knocked on my door, it was an argument,
Yeah.
right?
Shut up.
Yeah, it was like when she knocked on my door, there was nothing good coming through. Like it was,
Right.
and she opens the door. She goes, "Is that you singing?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And she goes, "That's really good." And she goes, "That's really good." I go, "Really?" She goes, "Yeah." And she just closes the door. And I was like, "Wow, man!" And if she, who is like the most vicious critic of everything I do,
Right.
I mean, like, I'm not moving the Parcheesi guys the right way. You know what I mean? Like she would give me hell for it. I was like, maybe there's something here. And then that was it. I just started singing. And in high school, I realized early on, I was like, I don't want to do anything else. I knew before, I remember teachers and counselors, like, what are you gonna do with your life? You have to decide. You have to, and it's like,
Mhm.
and all these people were scrambling, and I already knew. I was like, I know what I'm gonna do. I know where I'm going. And it's like, it has nothing to do with college. It has to do with me,
Mhm.
like, working my ass off, which is what I did. And
Right. Right. Yeah. I
continue
mean,
to do so.
so did you play, like, did you front a band in high school?
I did.
Okay.
I started my first band. Would have been the summer of my summer going into my junior year in high school.
Okay.
I was in a band called Homegrown, and it was like, I remember my guitar player, who's still one of my best friends, he couldn't play standing up. And sit on a crate, and my PA was a little PV guitar amp. The drummer had zero timing, and like, yeah, that was my first band, Homegrown.
That's funny. There was a band, I don't even know
Yeah.
if you knew this. There was a band that it might have been the mid 90s, late 90s, early 2000s. There was like a surf punk band called Homegrown that used to play in San Diego.
Oh, I know. Right. What's funny is there's no internet around this time.
Well, of course.
And we kind of heard, you know what I mean? So we heard like the grapevine. There's a band, you know, in California called Homegrown. So then we changed our name to Soul Grown, right? And then that turned into this is actually that turned into Junk Hole. No idea what the reference is. and then by that time I was off and running, and I had, you know, I graduated high school and I was living in Orange County.
I didn't even know if like they were even around yet, or like that's funny that you actually got wind that they were like a thing. I just figured like, oh, there's no internet. You guys are in Vegas. They're in some part of California. You probably wouldn't even like find that out until years later.
Having the conversation like with people. There's a band. You know, then I was also in a band like when I moved to Orange County, a band that actually did really well, and we were called Malfunction, but with the proper spelling. And then there was a band in Seattle, which was it was the guys from he was like the musician's musician. He died, but he was in that Pearl Jam, like Alice in Chains world. And
okay.
Called Malfunction with like FUNK.
Yeah, UNK. Okay.
So I remember getting shit for that. Like, there's a band Malfunction, and you guys are Malfunction, and we were like, it's spelled different. And they're like, doesn't matter.
Oh, that's funny. Did
you
internet?
Like,
right?
You know,
like, how do you know? That's what's hilarious. Is like, I remember like, I don't know. It might have been when MySpace came around. Then it was like, oh, there's already 5. There's like 8 bands already called whatever it was, and it's like you got to figure out which one it was. And then obviously now you could just Google anything, and there's probably 30 band names. But so did you go from Vegas then to Orange County, or
I did?
Okay,
and that's actually a pretty funny too, because in my mind, here's the perfect lack of internet knowledge. So remember, I don't know how old you are, but
I'm 37.
Okay, so 37. Do you remember when we used to rock maps?
Oh, like, yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, I remember when like it was like game changing when MapQuest happened, and then you could print them like off the computer. It was like, oh my gosh.
You had the paper with the, you know, like, but so I remember me and my girlfriend at the time, who became my first wife, she wanted to go to school in California, and we were obviously together. We wanted to be together. So we took a map and like went, okay, here's LA, here's where I want to be. She's like, you know, I can't afford UCLA, I can't afford, you know, but there's this little school in Costa Mesa, California called West Hills College that, you know, it's affordable. And we looked on the map and we just kind of misread the legend a little bit. And so in my mind, I'm like, it's like 30 minutes away. I was like, sure. Basically LA. Little did I know that there was this big monolith of a freeway called the 405.
Sure, that's always stopped.
Yeah, that's in LA. So basically, any trip to LA was a 2-hour endeavor, and so I ended up just living in Orange County, and I put up a little sign in a music store when you did that as well.
Mm-hmm.
Singer looking for a band. These are my influences. I answered an ad. The first ad I answered was that band Malfunction. We put a little record out. We got a little record deal, my first record deal, within like a year on this little hardcore label called Conversion. Mm-hmm. And through that, I met David Bino Benevedesti, who is the manager of System of a Down.
Wow.
So he managed my band and them at the same time. And that's a relationship that continued on to this day. John Belmine, the drummer from System, is one of my best friends.
That's how the Scars on Broadway thing probably came together years later.
That's how it happened.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah. Like I'd known Darren from seeing him on the scene,
Mhm.
but we never really spoke, but he knew of my band and I obviously knew of theirs. And David, their manager, um, hit me up. I was living in New Jersey, like playing on the Jersey Shore. He goes, "Hey," he goes, Darren's looking to start a band. Darren and John are looking to start a band, and your name came up, and is this something you'd be interested in?" And I'd be like, "Yeah." 2 days later, I'd flown to LA and I tried out for them, and I got the gig like on the spot. And
Wow.
you're, and that was one of the coolest eras of my life musically, because I really, really loved that band. Like that band and that lineup was doing something really special. And Darren, working with a guy like Darren was pretty amazing.
Yeah, great band. I mean, I remember when it was announced that that was a band. I was like, oh, wait, the guys from System are in another band? Like, this is so awesome. Like seeing like some of the shows you guys were playing, like at Troubadour and stuff. I'm like, how are they, they're gonna obviously pack this place, but then it would be like
Yeah,
the Coachella lineup also. And I'm like, how, like, this is crazy.
yeah, it was a great run, and their fans, Systems fans, and I've been very fortunate. Like that opened a big uh, door for me, even with
Mhm.
their fans. They are so passionate about those guys, so that when they came to watch Scars, the record was out not even days. These people knew every friggin' lyric. I remember like just looking over them and like, how is this even possible? Like I don't even know these lyrics. Like, like, how do they know these lyrics? Yeah, it was really special, man. Great band.
That's
I'm
so
glad
cool.
he's continued on.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well,
Yeah.
so you were in that Malfunction is what you got signed to a label, you guys were doing stuff. And then at what point do you go, you know what, I'm going to move to Miami. I really want to learn how to do this Cuban percussion. Like that just seems like such a
Right.
different path.
Yeah. So I got to go back a little bit. So
Okay.
so
Yeah,
my,
yeah. Sorry.
my so my I grew up in a very musical household, and in a different way. Like fans of music, like true audiophiles, to me are just as important as virtuoso musicians,
Mhm.
right? Like they carry the torch, right? And they I'll even meet people that I'm like, I learn things about. They can't play a single instrument, but they can tell me who played what instrument on what album, right?
Mhm.
So my dad was one of those guys. My dad loved music, right? And so even when things were volatile in our home, music was this like calming thread, right? We woke up to it, you went to sleep to it, even to the point where it's friggin' annoying, dude. Like it would be like, it'd be 7 in the morning and it's like Celia Cruz, dum, popping, boom, boom. And it's like, son of a bitch, like, it's like friggin' Saturday. Um, but so he had this great vinyl collection of everything from like salsa music to rock to swing to jazz to deep like bebop jazz to James Brown. So I cut my teeth on that, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
from an early age, I grew an appreciation for all. I never was like, this is lame because it's not cool. You know what I mean? Like because the kids aren't into it, I'm not into that. That no, I was just schooled on good music, right? So um, and I appreciated it all. So basically, I wasn't afraid of any genre, and still am not. Like to me, an artist is an artist. I see myself as an artist first. I can perform and do whatever I want because I'm an artist. You know what I mean? I don't need to box myself in. I choose not to. I'd rather park a car. You know what I mean? Like, and so and it's been very helpful through my career. Like I've been in very different types of bands and played a lot of different instruments and worked with a lot of different people, but it's because of that versatility and my love for so many genres. So
Mhm.
how did I go from uh scar or from you know Malfunction to Miami to a singer-songwriter record deal on Lava in the early
Right.
2000s, the Scars on Broadway after that. It happened because of my pure love and honesty in when it comes to music.
Mm-hmm.
No one questioned it.
That's amazing. Yeah, because a lot of people, I mean, myself included, growing up was like, oh, and I grew up at the time of you don't want to sell out, and if you liked punk rock music and you liked Rancid, you weren't allowed to like anything else. It was like you have to play, and it was like you boxed yourself in. I felt like myself included in that world.
Right. Yeah. Man, it's funny. Like I've had this conversation with people, and it's like, what is punk rock, right? Like
Right.
for example, and to me, the whole energy of punk rock is going against the grain, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
Sure.
making a statement, making your world. I'm gonna give you a perfect, like, what's more punk rock than if that is then an Elvis Presley doing what he did in the Bible Belt when the
Right.
entire world was against it, or a Chuck Berry, right? And like doing what he did and shaking and throwing the guitar and dancing and all this stuff in this very, very conservative period of time. And that's punk rock. That
Mm-hmm.
takes balls of steel. You know what I mean? Like,
Sure.
so when I put things in perspective like that, like, you know, I know a lot of guys. I've been in some heavy bands, right? And I've been on tour a lot. And
Right.
I've seen some of the heaviest bands backstage that are nothing like their music or the people they are on stage.
Right.
I mean, like, and it's like, you got to do it. You got to be honest, man.
Mm-hmm.
You got to be honest. And at the end of the day, no matter what genre you choose, because people don't give the fans and the listener enough credit. They're smarter than you think. They know when you're faking the funk. They know
Mm-hmm.
it.
Right.
Even if they can't explain it. So a guy like me, you know, I believe it or I don't do it. I've never done a gig that I don't believe in. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? Like there's been some situations that I felt were compromising that I just didn't do. You know what I mean? It had nothing to do with genre. You know what I mean? It had to do with kind of like the whole thing around it. But so the bands that I've been in, the projects I've been in, they were on it. They were real and honest parts of who I am, and everyone's accepted it. I've been very fortunate.
No, I
You know,
love that. Yeah, because I didn't realize until years later, like the punk rock thing. Like, oh my gosh, like what so and so is doing, they're not a punk. Like that genre doesn't explain what they are, but what they're doing is punk. It's like that idea that took me years upon years to figure that out. But like as a kid, it was like, oh, I can't like that band for that reason. And then like years later, I'm like, wow, I was an idiot. I missed the boat on that guy, like those guys or this band.
it's funny. You talk to any guys. Like I've even had, like, okay, the grandfather, godfather, one of like seminal, if not the punk band, the Sex Pistols.
Mm-hmm.
Steve Jones is a friend of mine, right?
Wow. Mm-hmm.
Right, and that guy is a friggin' audiophile. The types of music that guy listens to, it runs the gamut of everything, and I defy anyone to tell me that guy isn't punk rock.
Right. That's a great point.
You know what I mean? Like can I give you a quick story about?
Oh no, go ahead, man. This is awesome. I just don't want to take your time.
Stories I tell about him that maybe he's not even too proud of it, but I think it helps. It just adds to the lore of that guy and who he is. So we were in this band together called the Ducati All Stars, right? Where it was myself, Steve Jones, Billy Duffy from The Cult, and Billy Morrison, who now plays in Billy Idol's band.
Oh yeah, I know Billy Morrison actually. Yeah.
Great, dear friend. And
he's a great guy.
Yeah, he is. He's a dear friend. And so us four got on, we made this deal with Ducati where we jumped on their motorcycles and we rode up the coast and we played at different dealerships, right?
Mm-hmm.
For their diehard customers, and then we filmed a little documentary. The last stop on the trip was in Seattle, right? And by this time, Jonesy was done. Like he was done being on the motorcycle. He was done being on the road. He just wanted to be home. And we're playing in Seattle, places packed, at this dealership in Seattle, places packed. And there was a really diehard Sex Pistols fan that had brought his customized Ducati to be signed by, by Jonesy, right? Okay. Remember, Jonesy is over this at this point, and he's like full horns, like coming out, like he's just ready. He comes down. They're like, Jonesy, you have to sign this. You know, would you please sign this motorcycle? And he's like, oh, fine. You give him a Sharpie. He walks by this guy's bike, right? And these are expensive bikes. And and we're headed to the stage. He draws the biggest penis and testicles on the side of this, on the side of this guy's motorcycle.
Oh my God.
It drops the pen and then just walks up, and I saw the whole thing. I was like, and I watched this poor guy, the blood drain out of this guy's face. And I was like, in my mind, I was like, dude, you just handed a Sex Pistol a pen. Like, what do you think was going to happen?
Right.
Thank you. Thank you. Have a great night. Great meeting you. Yeah. No, you
thanks for the support.
Yeah.
Oh man. It's too bad he didn't sign his name, because then it could have been like, he drew this, but you know, he drew it. Then now it's just like, oh yeah, sure. I bet he's the one that drew that on your mic.
Yeah. To me, I was already thinking, I was like, if I would have been that, I get the guy was up in arms, I guess. I think he threw a fit and had to repaint his tank. But to me, I was like, I would have taken that tank off, hung it on my wall, and just got a new tank.
Right, exactly. I would have just put a different one on.
Amazing. The story is amazing.
That's incredible. And this wasn't the current or the most recent tour you did, right? No, for the documentary. This is a different documentary.
But that's what part of that relationship with Ducati and what became the Crossing the Great Divide documentary.
Okay. Well, let's get to that. I mean, I know you've done a ton of things, and just looking at like Camp Freddy, I mean, that's where I knew Billy Morrison from originally. And I worked with him a little bit in LA a few times, but just like you've done so many amazing things. But I want to hear about this record and this documentary that you did, because it's really such a cool story.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I'm really proud of it, and I can't wait for people to see the finished products. It's really beautiful. So basically, what it was during the height of the pandemic, I had made this little acoustic record called Suddenly 44, and I made it basically for my friends. It wasn't supposed to. I wasn't putting it out. Nothing. I made it for my friends, and I was just sending it to people, because if you remember, it's like, that's when we were completely isolated. We weren't even allowed to go out and go to stores, and you had to be in a hazmat suit to go to hunt for the non-existent toilet paper.
Right.
So I made this little record just to send to friends. And one of the people I sent it to was the president of Ducati North America, Jason Chinook, who was the guy that put together the Ducati All-Stars years prior.
Okay.
With Jonesy. And I just sent it to him as a friend. Like, that's it. Hey, man, check out this record. And when he heard it, he's like, man, this is really special. You know, we put our heads together. Maybe we should do something. Maybe we can reach people in a safe way. So what we did was I got on one of their motorcycles, and I went and visited shuttered venues. Because remember, at the time, everything was shut down. Mm-hmm. Right? Mm-hmm. And I would play little shows outside of them. And then we decided maybe we can perform at healthcare facilities safely from a distance outside.
That's cool. That's so
cool.
So
we put together this little idea. What I did was I started in Vegas, went up to Los Angeles, and then from Los Angeles I went to San Francisco. And then I made my way across the country to Manhattan and visited shuttered facilities, healthcare facilities, and played for them. When we got to DC, there was these investors that had invested in films before, and they were like, hey, have you ever considered, they were at this little show we did at a place, a club in, why am I spacing on the name of the club in DC? They were at this little private show that I did, and they were like, have you ever considered making this a documentary? It's really special. And I'd never considered that. But I put together this team, and we ended up shooting this documentary. This time I started in Florida, made my way back across the country to Los Angeles. But this time I visited, not only did I visit healthcare facilities, but I visited, different celebrities and peers of mine, music people, and basically asked how they were faring through COVID and where they saw our lives, you know, after, and it became Crossing the Great Divide.
Oh,
Which,
wow.
yeah, which in turn, I had so much time. It was 6 to 8 hours a day on a motorcycle for 30 days straight. I had a lot of time on my own, and I basically wrote this entire album on the way back. And it's a companion to the documentary. So when I got home, I had all this material, and I just locked myself in this little studio, and I made that album.
Well, so you were touring on the songs that you were kind of sending out to people originally, and then the documentary came about, and then you wrote the songs kind of based off of what the documentary was, what was happening when you guys were filming.
Yeah.
It's wow.
Experiencing at the time, and it's like, and when you hear it, it's there's a piece and a hope to this album that I think it's going to translate. I think people are going to be able to put the two together. It's a road trip record, you know, and I learned so much about myself and about humanity on that trip, man. It's like there's nothing like being on the road on a motorcycle to like really find yourself. I really believe that. It's like, you know, and it's apparent on this new album.
And when you get home to record the record, do you do it what at your house? I mean, you're sitting next to some drums. Like, I don't know if you did this like in your house, and like how locked down was the world still?
We were still locked down, but but also I wanted it to be, you know, some of it I recorded at the Killer Studio here in Las Vegas, and then some of the stuff I sent out, but the majority of it was here on my time at my pace is what I wanted. Right? There was no label involved at the time when I started making it. No one breathing over my shoulder. No one asking for singles, right? And basically what I did is So basically what I would do is I would sit down and record and write. If I wasn't feeling it, I would get up and just go for a walk and go do something else. I wanted this to be completely organic, right? And that's tough to do when you're paying hourly at some state-of-the-art studio.
Right. You kind of have to go in there with an objective more so than like, I'm going to just tinker around and see what I can come up with today.
Yeah, you know, like those old school budgets are gone. So, and I've been in studios long enough and been made enough albums that I knew what to do here on my own, and I got some really good sounds, some really good stuff. And so, yeah, the majority was recorded here on my own in my little studio.
Wow. I know you have a feature from on the Great Divide, the single, but do you have any other people playing? Like, from what I read about the documentaries, like, you know, you have Billy Gibbons in it and different, you know, big named people. Are any of them on the record? Or are they just in the film? And can you, like, how are they involved in the documentary as well?
So, yeah, so none of those people, none of them were on the album. But there were things that I learned from those people that definitely inspired music. As far as guests on the actual album, what I like we discussed, if I had a song that I had a particular feel for, right, or a piano part that I knew was outside of my range, I reached out to the guy.
To those people. Got it.
Those people, like, you know, Jamie Mahobarak played keys on a couple of songs. The guys played on every friggin' like hit you can imagine, like record you can imagine. That's another guy that just friggin' mind blowing. It's like I sent him the track, gave him some parameters of what I heard. Oh, I kind of hear, you know, like this Mellotron sound from a Donovan record, blah blah blah, and he would know exactly. He'd send it back, and he'd just nail it. So he was a guest. I had Ash Sohn played drums on the single, 90s Love Song. Matt Chamberlain played drums on a couple songs. Aka Topanen from Apocalyptica, one of my great friends and bandmates, played on The Great Divide.
Yeah.
But that 90% of I performed the audio.
Just you. That's amazing. Very. And with the documentary, is this going to go and like coincide with it as far as like, is it part of the like score or anything like that, or is it just two separate things?
Yeah, what's really cool about the documentary was that being that I was performing some of these songs throughout the entire filming of it.
Oh, so some of these you were playing on this tour too?
Yeah, I'm playing on
so I was thinking you were only doing the songs from that singer-songwriter thing that you were sending out to people.
No, it was like,
oh, okay.
I was performing them and kind of going back to my older catalog. So what happened is it organically became the soundtrack and also like the score.
Oh,
so
rad. Okay.
There's a lot of, the way that they edited it is really beautiful because there's a lot of space, right, and silence. But then when there is music, it's me. It's not some guy scoring some guy in some studio in LA, that doesn't have a connection to it scoring it. So it's all very honest and organic, and it reads really well.
That's amazing. And how many cities do you hit? Do you remember?
I have it somewhere. It was ridiculous.
Okay. It's all good. You were basically traveling the whole US doing this.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
5,000 miles, 3 to 4 shows a day.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. 3 to 4 shows, like acoustic shows a day, and 1 to 2 interviews a day in different cities. So we did it. It took about close to 30 days to do it.
Wow.
So, yeah, it was gnarly. So we weren't going like this. We were going like this.
Sure. Like however you could get it to work out. Yeah. It sounds like that's so cool. And is the record coming out the same day as the documentary, or they?
Documentary comes out a little bit later. The album comes out June 24th.
Yeah, I saw that. but the documentary is it's not the same thing. It's not just like, oh, here's the documentary and here's the record together. It's separate pieces.
But they both complement each other.
Amazing. Well, I can't wait to see it and check out the record as well, man. I love what it sounds like so far.
Thank you very much. I'm very proud of it.
That's so cool. And thank you so much for hanging out with me today, Franky. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, man. I probably talked off your ear, but
no. That's what I love about this is I love finding out all these things, and I really appreciate the time you've spent. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I appreciate you as well.
I have one more quick question, though. I want to know if you have any advice for aspiring artists.
Okay, I do. If you measure success, people measure success differently, right? Like what I used to think success in this business is very different from what it is now, right? Like basically I used to think I was that fame and videos and all these things was success. Longevity is success, right? Longevity in this business to me, like I've been able to basically stay working for a long time. Learn your job, learn it well, right? Do your job and go home. Leave drama at home. No drama. That's why I keep getting work. And that's why I keep performing, because I just show up, I do what I do, and I go home. I don't want to involve anything else. That's it. Bring me back.